Right, so this project seems to be taking forever. Had some issues and some false starts on the welding, which turned out to be a faulty welder. The problem I was having was the welder wasn't working on the lower power settings that you need for thinner sheet metal. So I was either blowing through or not welding at all. Of course, in my inexperience of welding, I was blaming myself rather than the tools, which is generally a good thing to do. But no, it turns out the welder was a problem. Since then, picked up a different welder, and have been having quite a bit more success. So what I've got is argon and CO2 mixed gas, I've got 0.8 welding wire, and I've got some 1.2mm sheet metal which I'm using for patches. So I started off by welding on some test pieces to get the welder set up to where I was happy with it. And once I got that about right, I moved on to some of the lower hanging fruit on the car to see if I could weld my first patch in successfully. And since I got the new gear, that seems to have worked well. I'll show you some clips for how that went now. I'm going to start with quite an inconspicuous area. There's a part on this, let's say, chassis rail, which looks like easy pickings, which is where I'm going to start. So the first thing to do is give this a thorough wire brushing with an angle grinder this time, so we can really see how bad that rot is. And make a patch of some description and start welding, see how we get on. Once I've figured that out, I'll hopefully move on and take care of the rest. Right, so now I've just cleaned it up with the flap wheel. I'm going to go right ahead and start cutting my shape out with this cutting disc. Screwdriver. There we go. Looking inside, there's not actually any rust in there, which is quite a relief. So it looks like it was just this little patch here, well, other than this one. Right, I've cleaned up a piece of metal which I'm going to make a patch out of, and obviously I've just cut this from under the car. Looks like we should quite easily be able to make a little patch there. How I'm going to mark it to get it as exact as possible is I'm going to use masking tape and draw around. Right, I'll just deburr this a little bit with a file. I'll be honest, that's taken a few back and forths, but we've got pretty much a perfect fit there. Right, so I've got the welder set up exactly as it was on the bench where it was working for me. Hopefully it works for me here as well. It's time to get this first little piece tacked in. I'm going to put just a couple of tacks on this, then take the magnet away and then finish the job off. Let's crack on. Right, that's one successful tack. Good start. I can take the magnet off. Why did it have to go on my ankle? As you can see, not the prettiest, but it's solid and that rust is gone. So the next thing to do is get myself under the car, start wire brushing any surface rust I can see, weld up any holes I find as I go along. I should also mention that I've removed the rear struts, removed the handbrake cables and also that fuel pipe. Not only that, but stripped out the boot just to make sure I don't start any fires whilst I'm welding under there.
Is my head on fire?
Right, so it's taken quite a while this, and it's been a bloody unpleasant job to be honest, but I've chased back all of the rust I can see any hint of under the car, all the way back to bare metal. I then put a rust converter on it just to make sure it doesn't come back, and then coated it with epoxy primer as well. As you saw, I found two little holes, which is less than I expected actually, that were just up where the fuel tank mounts up. So I've welded two little patches in there, quite crudely, but it's definitely quite solid. Shouldn't be an issue. There's definitely the temptation to just keep wire brushing with the angle grinder and take all of that old underseal off. But to be honest, wherever I've brushed that didn't have signs of rust, I've actually just gone down to bare metal and it's looked really clean. and in doing that I've taken the original E-coat off. So I suspect if I just went and brushed everything down to bare metal, it would actually be less rust resistant than it is now. Leaving that original E-coat in place and where the underseal's solid, leaving that in place too, I think is probably the smartest long-term move for the car. So I'm going to leave it be and stop here. So before I can start spraying new underseal on, I've got to turn my attention to these wheel wells and wheel arches. And as you can see, it looks like I have some big problems to deal with in here. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that one. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Join us in the next video.